He's a lecturer at the Mater Dei Institute and a board member of the Iona Institute. He was in favour of a no vote. Dr. Murray, thanks for joining us this afternoon.
Good afternoon.
As Dick Tuck said, to paraphrase him, the people have spoken, the sods. What do you make of the vote, the 700,000 people against the proposal?
Well,
where do they go now, politically?
Well, you asked previous people what they were to make of that question, and Eamon Gilmore certainly dodged it. I think it's a very important question. Close to 750,000 people did vote no, and it was the case that in the campaign, there's simply, apart from just maybe 4 or 5 individuals in the Parliament, there were no political parties and no one else who was speaking for our concerns or supporting our campaign. So that was part of the difficulty that we faced, and we're very pleased with the fact that we managed to make a very substantial contribution. And I just want to say thank you to people. I didn't say this yesterday because I was so disappointed with the result. I didn't think perhaps to say this as clearly as I would have liked, but big thank you to all the people who voted, and the people who voted no especially, and also big thank you to the people who supported our campaign, who gave energy and time, and also who donated money, because we were totally reliant on donations from ordinary Irish people all the way. We had no public money, we had no big foreign donations at all that the other side seemed to have. So we were very grateful for that, and I just want to say that on the record. A very, very big thank you to all those people. It's a big disappointment for the actual result, but I think you
were missing to some degree some key ally early in the campaign, and that's the big organisation that seemed to leave it till quite late to take part, namely the Catholic Church. Do you think they were hampered by a phraseology like intrinsically disordered with respect to homosexuality that may have alienated people in this campaign?
Well, I think that the contribution made by bishops and by priests during the campaign was very welcome. There were some very, very notable contributions made, and again, I want to acknowledge that. It is a difficulty in Ireland when we talk about things to do with law and politics. When we bring religion into it in any way at all, it does certainly complicate things. And one of the things we decided to do in the No campaign was try to keep things as simple as we could, and we found ourselves in a very strange situation that even things as simple as the distinction between men and women and the complementarity of husband and wife, mothers and fathers, the unique contribution that mothers make to their children, even simple things like that, very basic things, were under question and were being doubted, were being denied in public by people in positions of responsibility too. So it never got to kind of the more complicated moral issues in a sense, because we were dealing with very basic issues that they themselves were seemed to be no longer clear to people. So it is something that's very upsetting to me that so many people voted yes, but I think most of those probably didn't vote yes for anything except a very laudable kind of desire to be welcoming and to be inclusive and to be loving.
Well, maybe it is that simple. Maybe it is that simple for the 60% of people that took part. For them, it was a simple issue, and the more theological, philosophical issues that perhaps you were concerned with, it just wasn't that complicated for 60% of the electorate.
It could be, but there's a big issue here, I think, for the churches in Ireland, and obviously mainly for the Catholic Church because of the fact that it's so large and so many people identified themselves as Catholics in Ireland. And there were a number of very public declarations in favour of yes and advocates for yes who were Catholics, and that was very strongly highlighted during the campaign. Because from my point of view, I find it very difficult to see how people can vote to change the definition of marriage from a union of a man and a woman to a gender-neutral definition when you have such a strong endorsement of the definition of marriage as the union of man and a woman from Jesus Christ in his teaching in Mark chapter 10. Very central part of the Church's teaching, not just about the sacrament now, but about marriage as a natural thing.
Maybe people looked at a different part of Jesus' teaching and said, render unto Caesar what is Caesar's, and they thought this is state law and that there will always be a value added in Catholic marriage. There will be a solemnised religious marriage, and then to those who only want a state civil marriage, we'd leave this to them.
Well, you see, the thing about it is that everything that belongs to Caesar also belongs to God. So that phrase, render unto Caesar what Caesar's, and render unto God what is God's, can't be used to try and drive a wedge between Caesar and God. Everything belongs to God. And so anyone who's a Catholic, anyone who's a Christian, is going to have to try and take the whole of Jesus' teaching. You can't pick and choose which ones you like. So you can't just say that this was simply a civil matter, had nothing whatsoever to do with the teaching of Jesus. If he's teaching that marriage is based in the God creating us male and female, and if you are a believer in the Bible, in the teaching of Jesus, that surely has to be a challenge to you, because are you saying that Jesus got it wrong? Are you saying that that's not relevant to the issue of civil marriage?
Well, what about what Dermot Martin is saying, that the
non-relevant.
Catholic Church needs to have a reality check? Is the reality check about how large it should be in Ireland, or is that reality check about the Church's teaching in order to keep some of those people on board?
I think the Church can never, ever be guided by trying to be large or trying to keep people on board. It has to always be, instead of trying to be popular, it has to try and be faithful to the gospel, and it has to do that in a way which is sensitive, and do that in a way which is as fair and as rational and as attractive as possible, for sure. There's no doubt about that. But it can't simply be looking for votes. I mean, it's not a business that is trying to sell a product, and if the people don't like the product, they can just go and change the product to something that people will like. That's not what the Church is about. The gospel can't be changed like that. So the Church has to stay faithful to the gospel of Jesus Christ and find ways to communicate it as effectively, and I think the Church has failed to do that over the last decades. And so there's a vast number of people out there who simply do not know the Church's teaching well. They have fragments of it.
Whose fault is that?
I think the responsibility is widespread. Obviously, an ultimate responsibility has to lie with bishops, because they are the ones ultimately responsible for teaching in their diocese. But it is people, theologians like me, teachers, and priests, of course. But there are exceptions now. I'm not in any way trying to point the finger at everybody. I am just simply trying to issue a kind of a challenge to everybody.
Well, what about the Pope, for example? There was a certain
wrong?
level of ambiguity seen in his remarks that one shouldn't judge, and by that people said maybe that was seen to be a statement of stay out of other people's affairs. Is the message from the top, from the very top in Rome, creating muddy waters here?
Well, the Pope has said many clear and very good things since, but that particular quote has been one of the most misused quotes I've ever seen. Nobody ever seems to put it properly in context. And so it's become this kind of mythical kind of thing that has no relationship whatsoever to what the Pope actually said. So I would say to anyone who's ever thinking of using it or who is impressed by it, go and check the original context. It's been so misused. Pope Francis has said loads of things recently in his Wednesday audiences about the complementarity of male and female. It's got very little attention in the media. Okay. So I think the media also have to be asking themselves too, are you presenting a picture of Francis that is not really completely accurate? Because he said loads of things that are obviously completely and unsurprisingly supportive of the Church's teaching on marriage and of a rational approach to marriage that recognises men and women are different and unique. But that's got very little attention.
John Murray from the Iona Institute, the Mater Dei